who doesn't have any punchlines. There's just an energy and an intensity to what he does. So, and then the fact that he's asking me to kind of...
I don't want to have to just get one thing over and over again. People are divided over who was more relatable. Yeah, I mean, there's a place for everything. Yeah. Doomsday is, you know, a complete reinvention. It's another swing.
The fans are as much a part of this process as we are.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe appears to be approaching a major behind-the-scenes identity crisis, one that could potentially influence the direction of the franchise for years to come. For much of its history, Marvel relied on the grounded heroism of characters like Iron Man and Spider-Man, with Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland representing two very different generations of the Avengers legacy. But in recent years, a completely different energy has entered the equation, largely driven by Ryan Reynolds and the wildly self-aware personality of Deadpool. According to online speculation, this has created an increasingly complicated dynamic between Marvel's traditional storytelling style and the irreverent, meta-humor-heavy approach that Reynolds has helped popularize. Some rumors even suggest that certain directors and creative executives have concerns about the franchise leaning too heavily into the Deadpoolification of the MCU, fearing that an endless stream of jokes, cameos, and fourth-wall-breaking moments could eventually overshadow the emotional storytelling that built Marvel's audience in the first place. That tension allegedly became even more noticeable during the build-up to Avengers: Doomsday. Rumors surrounding Reynolds' involvement have portrayed the process as far more complicated than a simple casting decision, with the actor and Hugh Jackman generating enormous attention through high-profile appearances and surprise moments at events such as San Diego Comic-Con's Hall H and D23. Reynolds has always understood how to turn a promotional appearance into a viral event, and his partnership with Jackman has only amplified that effect. While fans embrace the spectacle, some industry speculation has suggested that Marvel's creative leadership may have found itself navigating an increasingly difficult balance between satisfying audience demand and maintaining control over the film's overall creative direction. If there is any truth to those rumors, the situation represents a fascinating conflict between two sides of modern Marvel: the carefully structured cinematic universe that built the franchise into a global phenomenon, and the unpredictable, meme-driven entertainment machine that Deadpool has come to represent.
We actually think this could really work, and then I went to his abode and pitched him this idea.
According to the rumors circulating online, Ryan Reynolds is expected to have a relatively limited role in Avengers: Doomsday, with the film's creative control reportedly remaining firmly in the hands of the directors and producers. Much of the speculation centers on Robert Downey Jr., whose return as Dr. Doom has created one of the most intriguing developments in Marvel's history. The stakes become even higher when Tom Holland's Spider-Man enters the picture. Following the enormous success of his latest Spider-Man outing, Holland has further established himself as one of the key faces of the modern MCU. Doomsday is also expected to explore a complicated emotional connection between Peter Parker and Downey's new incarnation as Dr. Doom. After Tony Stark's emotional death in Avengers: Endgame, the possibility of Holland and Downey sharing the screen again in such a dramatically different relationship has naturally generated enormous anticipation. According to the speculation, Holland is determined to protect the emotional weight of those scenes and would have little interest in seeing important moments interrupted by unnecessary fourth-wall-breaking Deadpool appearances. This feeds into a larger theory about Reynolds' strategy for the multiverse saga, keeping Deadpool connected to as many major Marvel projects as possible so the character remains one of the franchise's biggest attention magnets. Supporters could describe that approach as a way of keeping Marvel fresh and unpredictable, while critics might see it as another step toward replacing serious character-driven storytelling with constant jokes and self-referential humor. The contrast between those philosophies could hardly be more obvious. On one side is the fast-paced, irreverent style that has made Deadpool a global phenomenon. On the other is the dramatic, emotionally grounded storytelling that helped define Marvel's most successful era. Some online reports have even portrayed the production as a potential clash between the Deadpool camp and the traditional Avengers creative philosophy. With such a massive ensemble cast involved, disagreements and competing creative priorities would hardly be surprising. The challenge for the Russo brothers, Assuming the rumors accurately reflect the situation would be maintaining a consistent tone while balancing dozens of major characters and ensuring that Doctor Doom remains the central threat. Rather than allowing the movie to become overwhelmed by cameos and meta-humor, the filmmakers would need to preserve the sense of danger, emotional weight, and scale that audiences expect from a project positioned as one of the MCU's biggest events.
Challenging those characters, figuring out new characters to intersect them with, and sort of see them in new lights and bring them to new challenges.
Characters that can bring that out of the audience tend to be our favorite characters.
Within our cinematic universe is incredibly exciting. It's been something that has been a long time coming.
Every time a new rumor emerges about a possible cameo, the Marvel fandom seems to split straight down the middle. One side wants more of the chaotic comedy, outrageous cameos, and meta-humor that Deadpool represents, while the other is calling for a return to the emotional, character-driven storytelling that defined Marvel at its peak. The reality is that Marvel Studios appears to be facing a difficult balancing act. The studio cannot simply ignore the enormous success of Deadpool and Wolverine, which demonstrated that audiences still have a huge appetite for Ryan Reynolds' R-rated, self-aware brand of superhero comedy. At the same time, Marvel cannot build an entire cinematic universe around punchlines and surprise appearances. If Avengers: Doomsday becomes an overcrowded collection of cameos that exist primarily to generate viral moments rather than advance the story, the studio could risk losing the emotional foundation that made the MCU such a global phenomenon in the first place. That is why the script, the editing, and the director's control over the final product could be more important than ever. Robert Downey Jr.'s return as Doctor Doom alone represents an enormous creative gamble. If the character is treated as nothing more than a joke or a nostalgic callback, the decision could backfire spectacularly. But if Downey is allowed to approach Doom with the same intensity and dramatic commitment that made his Iron Man performance so iconic, Marvel could potentially create one of the most fascinating comebacks in modern blockbuster cinema. Tom Holland's position is equally important. After years of playing Peter Parker, Holland has developed far more influence within the industry and has expanded his role beyond simply being an actor. Through his production work and growing business interests, he is no longer the young performer who simply arrives on set and follows instructions. He has a significant stake in protecting the long-term legacy of Spider-Man, and if he genuinely believed that unnecessary crossovers were damaging Peter Parker's story, he would have considerably more leverage than he did when he first joined the MCU. This is why the rumored tension should not simply be viewed as a clash of celebrity egos. At its core, the larger issue is about the future direction of Marvel's intellectual property. Audiences have increasingly expressed frustration with multiverse fatigue, excessive cameos, and stories that sometimes appear designed more around viral moments than meaningful character development. Fans want spectacle, but they also want those spectacular moments to matter. The public arguments, podcast comments, social media exchanges, and competitive banter surrounding Marvel's biggest stars may only be the visible layer of a much larger debate about what the franchise should become. Even comments from former Avengers stars criticizing certain comedic or parody-driven approaches have been interpreted by fans as signs of a broader frustration with the direction superhero filmmaking has taken. Now, with Robert Downey Jr. returning to the MCU and the Russo brothers once again directing a major Avengers event, there is a growing sense that Marvel may be attempting to swing the pendulum back toward a more serious and emotionally grounded approach. The goal would not necessarily be to eliminate humor or the wild unpredictability that Deadpool brings to the franchise, but to make sure those elements serve the story rather than overwhelm it. Ultimately, the future of the MCU may depend on whether Marvel can successfully reconcile these two very different worlds, the chaotic, self-aware energy of Deadpool and the dramatic, character-driven storytelling that originally made audiences emotionally invest in the Avengers. Can the irreverent chaos of Deadpool truly coexist with a grounded, high-stakes story about the fate of reality? Perhaps it can, but making that combination work will require an extraordinary level of discipline and creative balance. Ryan Reynolds may be one of Hollywood's most effective marketing forces, but when it comes to Avengers: Doomsday, the directors and producers will ultimately determine how much influence that chaotic energy has on the final story. Their biggest challenge will be making sure the legacy of Tony Stark and the emotional journey of Peter Parker are not buried beneath a constant stream of fourth-wall-breaking jokes and surprise cameos. Of course, the fans will have the final word. They're the ones buying the tickets, dissecting every trailer frame, flooding social media with theories, and ultimately deciding whether Marvel's next chapter succeeds or fails. With every new rumor, leaked detail, or alleged behind-the-scenes report, the level of scrutiny only grows. The question is whether Marvel can create a crossover that genuinely defies expectations and combines these wildly different tones into something memorable, or whether the studio will attempt to satisfy every corner of the fandom and ultimately create a film that feels unfocused. At this point, the stakes are enormous, the expectations are almost impossible to meet, and the entire production has become a massive waiting game. The coming months could reveal much more about the direction Marvel intends to take. For now, the filmmakers are tasked with protecting their creative vision. The legacy characters remain at the center of the conversation, and audiences around the world are waiting to discover whether Marvel can successfully control the unpredictable force that Deadpool represents, or whether the character is about to help trigger the MCU's most chaotic transformation yet.